We encourage you to hit the subscribe button right now so you can listen to more podcasts of Operation Truth. Ladies and gentlemen, we do want to hear from you, so we encourage you to email us directly at operationtruthofficial@gmail.com. I want you to know that your messages are likely to be heard, addressed, and listened to on air.
Operation Truth, the show they don't want you to see. Now, here's your host, Lou.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lou Palumbo. With us again is Tom Fuentes, co-host of Operation Truth. We encourage you, please become part of this bigger conversation, operationtruthofficial@gmail.com. Email us. We're going to be setting up a calling mechanism at some point, but we want you to become part of this conversation. Tom and I are not trying to spoon feed you. We leave that exercise to MSNBC, Fox, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS. We're just trying to give you something to think about other than this garbage and these lies or this intentional misleading information that you receive on a daily basis. You know, I'm almost at the point where I think we should put a moratorium on building anything above one floor, because I don't know why more Americans aren't jumping out windows. You know, all we do is get hammered with this negativity every day instead of, you know, some conciliatory conversation about trying to make things better and trying to fix problems. We just go in this vicious circle. A lot of topics to talk about. I'm going to get into this with Tom in a minute about China, because China's got a lot of tentacles, whether it's a collusive relationship with the Biden family, currency, Taiwan, their overall attitude and approach towards this country, and maybe what their long-term agenda is. And I got a feeling Tom can probably give us some insight, because as you may have heard in prior podcasts, Tom was in charge of the international operation for the FBI, where he oversaw 90 countries. I hate to keep promoting him like this. I should be his agent. I swear, there's got to be something in for me bigger than this. But in any case, I want to bring Tom in. And, you know, before we go there, and Tom will talk about this also, this young man, Oliver Anthony, he came out with this song, Rich Men North of Richmond. Now, you have to know where Richmond is positioned in reference to Washington, D.C. and the affluence level there. And all he was really trying to do was express the sentiment, once again, of people who may not be focused on enough or have been forgotten in totality. But of course, everybody's offended at the notion that maybe we're not doing everything the way we should. I want to say something to you guys. If you're wondering why the country's in so much trouble today, let me spell it out for you very simply. And this has no political tie. We haven't got the appropriate leadership. The country is not, the exercise is not to elect an elected official, a president, and have his rhetoric or his agenda just divide the country. Interestingly enough, the agenda of Donald Trump, although they were hypercritical of him at the border, and I understand why, because the exercise says that just flood the country with people who are here illegally. In the last episode, you probably heard me mention that in the month of June, we had 145,000 plus people cross our borders illegally. They come from any number of countries, by the way. This isn't Mexico, Central and South America. I just want to remind you. And July was 183,000 people crossed the border illegally. And I mentioned in the last episode also, and I'm going to keep beating your brains in with this, we have gotaways. We have probably 2 million people that are called gotaways. People have no encounter with our Customs Border Patrol. We have no idea who they are. And you know what? I don't want to go off on a tangent about this, because Tom could speak to it intelligently as well. We're not vetting anyone. Stop the bull. We don't have the mechanism to vet them. They don't have databases in these countries. By the way, just to remind you of this as well, they're changing their identities like you and I change underwear, providing you wear underwear. Some people go commando still. We did it in college. I don't want to go off on that topic, though. It's not appropriate. But the bottom, Tom, you didn't go commando, did you? You weren't a commando.
No, never. I wouldn't think of it.
I would have preferred if you would have taken the fifth on that one, folks. He didn't want to self-incriminate. Me, on the other hand, I'm going to tell you the truth and tell you I did. And I still do sometime. This is not
However, don't ask me how I sleep. Then I will take the fifth.
Okay, look, I think we're going to get censored. I have a feeling if this conversation continues in the direction it's going. I'm starting to learn both Tom and I are twisted. I'm only kidding you guys. But in any case, we need leadership. And I keep talking about this guy, John Kennedy. I heard all about what a scoundrel he was, his wife. And, listen, that was what the times we lived in. It was wrong, just like slavery was wrong, just like the Holocaust was horrific. We make mistakes as countries, as people. He did. But I tell you something about this guy. He had this world on a string. Frank Sinatra was one of my clients. I worked for him about 10 years. I buried him in 1998, which was just, I don't have real attachment to the people I protect or I work for as a rule. It's just not professional. But you have to understand what this man represented in our culture. He was just a transition of almost 5-6 decades where he sang his life. Most people didn't understand that about him. Really incredibly interesting person, but reminiscent of a different time. John Kennedy was part of that time. They were all rascals. They're still rascals today, guys. I'm not telling you anything I know, because I work for a lot of big people, and they're all rascals. I want to leave it that way. But John Kennedy, in my opinion, and people can differ, he was a conservative Democrat, was the quintessential leader in our lifetime. The country felt all included. We're lacking that today. The key is not to have your rhetoric divide the country, whether it be through the media or through our elected officials directly. The unfortunate part here with the media is there's no credibility with them. Tom and I, he's hammering you with the problem with the FBI and the lack of credibility. Look at your media outlets. The sad part is we don't know what to believe or when to believe it. And perhaps my favorite line is, if we can't find out something bad about you, we'll just make it up. We'll have a certain number of people latch onto it because it came from the media. They have completely abandoned their responsibility to act responsible. So I go back and say to you guys, we need leadership. I don't believe that Donald Trump is that answer. Biden's not that answer. I would have to go through the rest of these individuals to figure out who could teach us it's time to put the sword down. I do want to remind you of something else that's critically important for you to believe, okay? And you can research this. A minuscule percentage of this country is destabilizing it and causing all this dysfunction. 99% of this population, of about 360 million, are out doing what you're doing every day. Worried about your kids, their education, their diet, getting them to school, your mortgages, your car payments, your insurance. This is not a country hell-bent on protesting and tearing down cities. It's a handful of people. I watched 50 people jump on a subway track in New York City and disrupt the entire subway system. Now, I don't really want to say too much on this topic, but if you roll back generationally when Tom and I first got in law enforcement, which is 1973, I will tell you this, that would have been handled much more different. That's all I'm going to say. Whether you understand it, you don't, and I can get into this conversation with you at another time. The problem with the public is you're too insulated from how harsh and dark the streets can be. And sometimes you need discretionary policing. Today, we're having no policing, courtesy of taking their pensions and incarcerating them. But there was a time where we had discretion in policing, and we did what we had to do. I have to tell you something else that's really interesting in regards to Trump. I'm listening to CBS put out statistics that his approval rating's like 62%. I think they call that opposite of the desired result. We're trying to get rid of the guy and he's gaining momentum. And guys, I want to say something to you. I am prepared to acknowledge things he did for this country that were good. And he made some mistakes. Everyone does. The key is learn, go forward, stop beating people over the head with the mistake, learn and go forward. But he polarized the country, just like Biden has. So let me get into this conversation with Tom. I don't mean to be so wordy. I get criticized sometimes about that. But what I say to you is critically important, because I want you to think. I don't want you to just accept everything we're saying on face value. That's the responsibility of other networks. Tom, I want to start out with this conversation with China, and this is a really broad conversation. We have Taiwan issues, currency issues, what I believe to be their overall agenda regarding our country and their intended purpose. Take me wherever you want to start, Tom, because I know you can speak to all of this intelligently.
Well, I think, Lou, that China is, basically trying to undermine our country, undermine our values, and try to take over as the leading economy in the world, take that mantle from us. But, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to address every one of these issues. Now, China has had major espionage operations in the United States for decades. Go back to the 1940s when they stole the technology for nuclear bombs from us, as did the Soviet Union at the time. But, they have 360,000 students here on student visas from China. And many of them, when they finish their studies, they may want to stay in America. They may want to become, employees of our high-tech industry and do things like that. But many of them don't. Many of them are going to go back to China and help their military and help their spy agencies and help their government undermine us. And they will have an inside track, having lived here for several years while they were going to school. So no other country in the world does that. The other countries wonder, well, we're not losing this kind of technology to China. We're not, having all of this espionage. Oh, by the way, we're not having 360,000 students here and Chinese professors here. Now, the FBI had a very robust, going back to when I was in the Bureau, to investigate allegations of Chinese professors or Chinese students committing espionage activity in our country, trying to steal our high-tech secrets. Joe Biden just closed that program down this past year. And it indicted professors and students every year, all the time, on a continuing basis, who were committing espionage in our country. Joe Biden shut that down. Now, is it because China gave Hunter and Joe $31 million over the past couple of years, according to Peter Schweitzer? I wouldn't say that. However, he did shut down that program that the FBI has had for several decades, as I mentioned, back to when I was an agent. So you see this where we don't really take China seriously. We don't look at the trade imbalance that we've had with China. President Trump was the first one to address that and say, if you don't drop your tariffs, we're going to put tariffs on you. And that pretty well, helped level the field for a while. But that's over with. So now, yes, you have China trying to pretty much take our economy, take our culture, take all of these things that we take for granted.
Tom, you touched on something with Biden, and there's this investigation underway that the fruit that it is bearing is quite alarming. And, I think you're of the opinion, as I am, there's something wrong with this relationship with China, with the Bidens, and they're going to get to the bottom of it. I'm confident, even though we do realize the Democrat Party, who are, I guess, tied to this word loyalty, blindly loyal, have abandoned the truth. Let's just get to the truth on this topic. But this thing with Biden goes beyond China, Tom. This is a very collusive relationship with a number of entities: Romania, Russia, Burisma, the Ukraine. It isn't just, China as far as the Bidens go. I didn't mean to transition you like that, but I want you to speak to this for a second. As long as Biden's name came up with China and some rather sketchy, business dealings.
Well, right now, there is enough indication of money taken by the Bidens from several countries: China, the Ukraine, Romania, the ex-wife of the mayor of Moscow. And, in those situations, what did they get in return from the Bidens? What was their business? Well, it appears the only business they had was that they could have Joe Biden change policy or programs or whatever in favor of what they wanted. Now, you look at, for example, the ex-wife of the mayor of Moscow. She comes and has dinner with Joe and Hunter at Cafe Milano in Washington, D.C., and they have this long meeting. Then she goes back to Moscow. I think she sent Hunter something like $3.5 million shortly after that. But in any event, when Russia invades Ukraine and the president is initiating sanctions on all of the oligarchs, in Russia, the multi-billionaires in Russia, she's the only one that gets exempted from that. They don't freeze her bank accounts or take her yachts or any of that, but they do it to all of these other. Now, how is it that she was so lucky, or that somehow they missed the idea that she should be included in the sanctions? I don't think it had anything to do with the money she paid to the Bidens. That's just a coincidence. So that's what you see in these things. So many coincidental things. The money from the Ukraine, that should be its own investigation. And, we've heard nothing about that. Now, the big controversy, a month ago, Senator Grassley saying that a whistleblower provided him the FD 1023 form that listed that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden had dealings with the head of Burisma in the Ukraine, and that they sent each of them $5 million. And that the head of Burisma told the source, the confidential human source, that he had recorded 15 conversations with Hunter and 2 conversations with Joe Biden, and that he was keeping them for safekeeping. Now, what the FBI do with that? We have at first, this goes back to Christopher Wray and how eager he is to repair the reputation. Wray says, oh, no, there's no such form. Grassley says, wait a minute, whistleblower has the form, there is a form and it's not classified. Wray says, no such form. And finally, well, okay. And he lets Grassley see a redacted copy of that form where it lists this information, including the phone calls between Hunter, Joe, and the head of Burisma. Now, the House committee, Congressman Comer's committee, they want to see that form. They're doing the investigation now of the activities of the Bidens and the money that was coming in. And so they get into a struggle with the FBI. They don't want to give it to them. They have to threaten Christopher Wray with being held in contempt of Congress. Finally, he gives them a chance to come into a skiff in the Capitol and look at the form, look at the actual FD 1023 confidential human source reporting. Now, this source, by the way, is not just some Joe schmuck that walked in off the street. This is a highly reliable, credible informant that in the past, they've already paid more than $100,000 to. So this is somebody that the FBI trusts. So now they do this reporting in 2020. And after the House allegedly sees that form, Senator Grassley, contacts members of the House committee and says, what did you think of the part about the phone calls being made by, the head of Burisma recording the Bidens? What phone calls? We didn't see any phone calls in the form. So now, whoever handled this issue at the FBI was so dumb that they show different redactions on the Grassley form than they do to the House, and they don't match. So that causes more controversy, that they couldn't even redact or show the same form to the House that they showed to Grassley. So this is the kind of stuff. And anyway, the whole thing, the whole inquiry, everything going on, the questioning of Wray takes weeks. He doesn't want to give the document. He doesn't want to he doesn't want anybody to testify. He don't want to talk about it. Every little thing that's come up in this investigation of the 2 House committees in particular has been like pulling teeth for every document, for every interview with an employee of the Bureau, for every interview of whistleblowers, you name it. And it surely appears to the public, certainly does to me, that the FBI is not being forthcoming in providing a response to the inquiries that they're given by a committee that's entrusted with overseeing executive branch agencies, the Senate and House committees. Now, nowhere in the Constitution, much as I love the FBI and my fellow executives, we used to joke that if you cut us, we would bleed Bureau blue. That's how loyal we were to the Bureau. But nowhere in the Constitution is the FBI listed as some exempt special agency that House and Senate committees can't make inquiries of, or other agencies can't inquire of what they're doing. And they act as if they have this special immunity privilege from any study of what they're doing or how they're doing it. And I just think it's wrong.
Tom, we're going to take a quick break, guys. We're going to take a quick break. I encourage you to become conversationally engaged. OperationTruthOfficial@gmail.com. When I come back, we're going to talk about pseudonyms. We're going to talk about show corporations. Just stay with us, guys. We'll be right back.
The world is in crisis, with political unrest and financially unstable countries trying to print their way to prosperity by taking on trillions of dollars of new debt. It's incredibly concerning. That's why you need to own silver as a hedge. So call today to receive the free hard asset information kit on how easy it is to own silver. Green energy demands will possibly turbocharge silver prices to 50, 100, even 300 an ounce, according to many experts around the world. Silver is a proven hedge against inflation. Since 1971, silver has returned over 11% when averaged yearly. Silver is a proven wealth preservation for hundreds of years. Hard Asset Management is a trusted leader in precious metals and rare coins for nearly 40 years. We have the guaranteed lowest prices, fast and easy ordering, expedited shipping, with award-winning customer service available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. CST, Monday through Friday. So protect yourself from the chaos. Invest in stability with Hard Asset Management. Call now and get your free Hard Asset Management information kit on how easy it is for you to own silver. 844-426-4653. 844-426-4653.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. And as you've been listening, Tom Fuentes has once again been providing you a massive amount of credible information. Things that he's saying are irrefutable because they are documented. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I think you need to listen carefully and understand where we're going with this conversation. We're not here to destroy the country or to criticize it in less than a constructive manner. We're here to get it back on track. Unfortunately, Tom could probably take 30 minutes and get the FBI back on track just by reinstilling the integrity and the honor and the trustworthiness that agency once held. Tom, I want to talk to you about pseudonyms and show corporations, and I don't even have to tell you who I'm talking about. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, when you're a government employee, you have a government issued iPhone, BlackBerry in the old days, whatever device. It's only supposed to be for government business. And every business that you conduct using that device has to be in the federal records maintained. This is why Hillary Clinton wanted separate devices and computer systems in her home, because she didn't want her records in the federal system where they could be subpoenaed and scrutinized. So you have these devices. My 30 years, almost 29 plus in the FBI, having FBI communication devices. When I traveled my last 8 or 10 years a lot overseas, I had 2, because not every phone company at that time covered every country around the world. So between the 2, one or the other would work, depending on where I was going. Now, a lot of us, you're not allowed to do personal business. And when you're working or you're traveling and you're going around the clock, how do you make phone calls to your family? How do you conduct other business if you need it? How do you check on a prescription medicine order that's coming in through a pharmacy? You're not supposed to use your government issued phone. So it's not unusual to have a separate phone that's your personal device, but it is unusual to have pseudonyms and have a number of those devices. You know, we nickname those burner phones like drug dealers use. So you find out that Joe Biden has had several different phones on his own private system. That's fine. But why the aliases? Why so many of them? Why, again, what business is he conducting? And this is another area that if we had a special prosecutor that was really trying to get to the bottom of the Biden family business, including that type of issue, then you would subpoena those phone records and you would see where his phone calls went. If he's calling government officials in the Ukraine on his personal phone, that's illegal. That's violating the Federal Records Act. So, like Hillary did. So that's the issue here. We don't know. We know he used aliases. We know he had multiple phones. We know, for example, I saw John Solomon, a very distinguished reporter, last week say about a year or 2 ago, he got a hold of one of the numbers of Joe Biden's burner phone that he was using back then. So for the heck of it, he wanted to find out what happened to somebody else using that number. He said he dialed the number, Joe Biden answered. So that's how he verified that Joe Biden was using the phone, under a different name when he had identified how that phone was being operated. So in any event, it's yet another shady, questionable, which maybe it could be questioned quick, resolved pretty quickly. But if you had a special prosecutor doing the investigation diligently, where the people would trust the outcome of it, not like these political witch hunts that we've seen in the last few years. But if you had that, it might do Biden a lot of good to clear his name on some of these issues. But they keep, acting, and if something suspicious comes up, they make it more suspicious by the way they deal with it.
You know, Tom, and while we're on the topic of Biden's and business dealings, you know, we bumped into some really interesting information about 20 shell companies, shell corporations, and that they've been used to filter money into the Bidens to the tune of about $21 million. What you hearing on that one, big boy?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you have these shell companies. All you need for a shell company is, you know, you file papers, you get an attorney to file the papers in whichever state, whether it's Delaware or my corporation is here in Virginia. You file the papers with the state corporation commission to, you know, declare yourself a corporation or an LLC, limited liability corporation. And then you're able to open bank accounts. You have a tax ID number, you have a number of things, but you're able to use that company, that LLC, to send and receive money to another LLC, then to another one, then to another one. You find out that they were using 10 or 20 LLCs to move money around. Now, supposedly, the 1023 form that the confidential FBI source says that the person that he's getting information from about the money going to the Bidens tells him, well, the way we're moving this money, it'll take them 10 years to figure it out. Well, that means they're moving it that way on purpose. It's money laundering then, on purpose. So now when he said that, normally that would be highly insulting. You mean to say it's going to take the FBI 10 years to track all those transactions? Well, he's obviously talking about the current FBI as a matter of investigating the Bidens. It might take 10 years, might take 20, might be never, especially if you put David Weiss in charge of it from Delaware. It'll surely take a decade to identify each of those transactions. That's what's wrong right now. Those kind of transactions can be tracked. Friends of mine that specialize in white-collar crime transactions like that, how LLCs can be used to move money from one to another, tell me, no, that would have taken, again, a few months max because of subpoenaing records from overseas. Might take a little bit more time. It would only take a few weeks, a few months, not 10 years.
Does the House have the ability, Tom, to proceed with, how would you say, examining each and every one of these? You know, listen, the reality of it is this is all on paper, so it's there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like it's something that cannot be established or proven. Do they have the mechanism in place to discover exactly
They
the
might have
amounts,
to
the
use another
monies,
committee, a different committee than the intelligence, you know, the banking committees or one of the other ones to try to get that information. So it might not be James Comer's committee or Jim Jordan's committee. It might be a different one. But in addition, you know, you have this information given to the FBI in 2020. Now, normally, the next question would be to question Christopher Wray on is, okay, you've got this highly sensitive information. What'd you do with it? What investigative steps did you follow to try to determine if the allegations were true? Very simple steps. The FBI could be doing all of that. So sounds like they didn't do anything, hence the whistleblower giving the form to Grassley. You know, that's where the problem comes in. Why was there no further investigation done based on the report of a highly credible, reliable, well-paid informant giving them that information? What'd they do with it? Now, normally, when I first heard about this, I thought, well, Christopher Wray's answer is going to be, from now until 10 years from now, it's under investigation. I can't talk about it. Pending investigation. They didn't even do that. Instead, they give out the story, no such form. Well, how stupid was that, to deny the existence of a form that they knew Grassley probably already had a copy of? So, and was well aware that the form existed. So I think that, you know, from the beginning of that part of the information about the Bidens, you have the FBI, again, not answering questions in a credible, honest, forthright manner. Hence, more suspicion of how the FBI does business or doesn't do it.
Guys, we're going to take a quick break and come back for our final segment. You're listening to Operation Truth. Tom and I both would like to encourage you to become part of this conversation by emailing us at operationtruthofficial@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your observations, your questions, your concerns, your opinions on how you feel we're going to climb out of this abyss. An abyss is defined as a seemingly bottomless pit. But I do believe that we can do that. I think with the right leadership, if we can convince the voters to get involved and attach themselves to issues that revolve around things we're talking about on the show, especially since, guys, everything we talk about intersects with the future of this country, which is the future of your children. You don't care about your children? Stay the course. Continue to keep the institution being run by the inmates. I have to say this before I come back to Tom after this break. The lack of morality in politics today, especially with the Democrats, they seem to have some excuse for everything. And, I have to be fair. I've listened to the Republicans do that too. They both rubber stamp each other's baloney. But what's going on with them today, they don't seem to find fault in anything, even within their own ranks. Like I go back and tell you about this issue with the governor of the state of Massachusetts, a state of emergency over the migration issue, Martha's Vineyard. They got one busload in. They deployed the National Guard. The city of New York, if anybody's listening to your local news, or I would suggest you listen probably to Fox, because they're going to give it the most airtime. It's not consistent with MSNBC or CNN's agenda. Listen to what's going on in New York City. Picture's worth 1,000 words. They got them sleeping all over the sidewalks. For those of you that aren't familiar with Midtown Manhattan, 45th Street, Madison Avenue, which is where the Roosevelt Hotel exists. That's right in the heart of Midtown. And Madison Avenue is like part of the Gold Coast shopping, segment of the city. And I'll tell you, I wanted to say something to Tom about the last segment. We were talking about the Catholic Church and the Mass in Latin. I learned the last Mass in Latin, believe it or not. And then they took it and put it in English. And eventually we were playing guitars in church to keep people entertained. I just wanted to throw that in. I don't know why, but I did. In any case, you look at the politics within the Democrats. The one interesting thing about this conversation today, they argue about, immigration. They argue about forgiveness on student loans. Some are arguing about the borders. The word that galvanizes this organization is Trump, which is why they don't want him to leave the conversation. Believe it or not, guys, we're 2.5 years since he's been out of office, and we're still rattling about this guy. And, I have my own sentiment. I feel he has expended his shelf life, any good he could have done, because even if he gets elected and he corrects a lot of these egregious conditions, starting with your economy, which is the number one concern of people, money, the country's going to go. We're just so divided. We can't see the forest for the trees any longer. Take a quick break. Going to come right back. We're going to finish this conversation with Tom and listening to Operation Truth.
Hard Asset Management is a trusted leader in precious metals and rare coins for nearly 40 years. We have the guaranteed lowest prices, fast and easy ordering, expedited shipping, with award-winning customer service available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. CST, Monday through Friday. So protect yourself from the chaos. Invest in stability with Hard Asset Management. Call now and get your free Hard Asset Management information kit on how easy it is for you to own silver. 844-426-4653. 844-426-4653.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. If you've been listening, the information is incredibly interesting, to put it politely. Most importantly, it's bound by the truth. You can question it if you like. We encourage you to. We want you to become your own investigator. I'm going to yield the remainder of this time to Tom Fuentes, co-host, to speak to issues, topics, observations, anything that is near and dear to his heart.
Well, Lou, we had conversations in previous podcasts, excuse me, about the public's distrust now of what the government says. And this goes back to, we started a historical lesson going back to distrust of the Warren Commission in the 60s, and then, various issues that came up from then until now. And, now we're kind of at that point again where we see it, the FBI, and the reason I want to bring that up again is because all my years in the organization, all the way up to and including being a senior executive, also serving on the executive committee of Interpol and traveling all over the world to see what's regarded all over the world, and I'm still traveling a great deal internationally, the rest of the world still regards the FBI as the #1 law enforcement agency anywhere in the world. Highest trust and all of that. Now, part of that is because much of the negativity that's in our media, that even includes the FBI when they use too much force to arrest somebody or whatever it might be, they don't get those kind of news reports other places in the world. So the reputation of the Bureau is still very, very high, and I get treated, unbelievably well and respectfully when they learn that, I was a senior executive of the FBI. But it's not that way anymore within the United States. And you have the current polling showing the Bureau confidence of the public, or distrust of the FBI being 60 to 70%. That's unbelievable. And to me, I don't care who the director is. If your numbers are that low, and they've been that low for this many years, time to go. Period. Get somebody in that the public can get behind and determine that that person is probably cleaning house and bringing in top executives that should be top executives because of the work they've done, the merit that they've earned on their way up the ladder. And that's what's missing now, is that you hear of too many promotions, not just in the FBI, but throughout the government, that are being based on other issues, whether it's race or gender or something other than merit. And I think in the FBI, we used to talk about the internal discipline process, the internal inspection process. We used to halfway joke about it that, we eat our young. That's how severe we are when inspections happen or reviews happen. And they're done almost immediately. They don't take 8-9 months like the current Richmond memo investigation. So these are the kind of issues that, from a very personal standpoint, I'd like to keep my pride in the organization and have it return to be the most trusted organization in the federal government, in the U.S. System, and maintain its supremacy around the world. That's what I'd like to see. And that's going to take a new director and new senior executives to do it.
I know, Tom, this is a topic that's very close to your heart. And guys, I want to remind you of something so we don't lose focus of really what's going on. 99% of these young agents, these men and women, are exceptional. They are the FBI. There's an expression that says the fish stinks from the head down. It's the head of the fish that's the problem in this organization, not these young men and women. I bump into them all the time. I just worked with them on a project last April. I won't go any further than that, but they are just who they're supposed to be. Buttoned down, intelligent, professional, smart, discreet. The other thing I'm concerned about also is a lot of this rhetoric going around about, China. Guys, we want to make sure that people who are of Asian descent don't become the focal point of your aggression because you're listening to all of this rhetoric. That's just not how we're doing this. I want to remind everyone, if they were to invade Taiwan or an act of aggression towards the country, that doesn't make every Asian person in our country the enemy. And then again, it's up to the FBI to identify those who are. Tom, I think we'll close for today. Next week, guys, we're going to have some conversations about this transition into digital currency. Hopefully we'll have Christian Briggs back. And I'm certain Tom and I will have more topics to talk about because, things just keep, I hate to say this because I don't like negativity, but eroding away. We need to acknowledge that and start to go forward. One final note that I meant to mention about the immigration issue this year. Since the beginning of this year in January, 2 million people have illegally crossed the border. That's not including those who overstay their visas, which used to be the majority of people that violated our immigration laws, or the northern border. And on that note, we're going to end. Thank you for joining us. This is Operation Truth. You can email us, become part of this conversation, operationtruthofficial@gmail.com. And please do not discuss anything about commando or we're sorry we did that. We'll catch you guys next week. Take care, guys. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right now, so you never miss an episode of Operation Truth. Send us an email, ask your questions, and very possibly we'll address your question on the air.